Welcome to the Pretty Powerful Podcast, where powerful women are interviewed every week to share real inspiring stories and incredible insight to help women or anyone break the barriers, be a part of innovation, shatter the glass ceiling, and dominate to the top of their sport, industry, or life's mission. Join us as we celebrate exceptional women and step into our power. And now, here's your host, Angela Gennari.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pretty Powerful Podcast. My name is Angela Gennari, and today we are here with Sofie Lindberg. Hi, Sofie.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
So, my pleasure. I'm happy to have you. So Sofie Lindberg is an American-Swedish catalyst for change. She is a dynamic individual with a diverse portfolio of roles. As a nonprofit founder, social entrepreneur, podcaster, speaker, coach, and community builder, she stands as a staunch advocate for gender equity. Breaking norms early in her journey, Sofie founded Claim Your Potential, a women's empowerment organization at the age of 17. Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Making her one of the youngest leaders in the nonprofit sector. So in addition to her role in the nonprofit sector, Sofie serves as the founder and CEO of Sofie Lindberg International, a vibrant community and coaching enterprise. So I just want to dive into 17. I mean, golly.
Yeah.
What made you so young want to go into the nonprofit segment, and especially something like Claim Your Potential that is amazing and powerful?
Thank you. I think I was just fortunate to have a lot of my life sped up.
Yeah.
I went to international school in Canada for high school, and I came from the US, and I went in from a college preparatory middle school. And so we were a year ahead of everyone. And so I went in and they said, oh, you should probably skip a grade because you've already learned all this.
Wow.
So I went, okay, cool. And then with the way that that particular school worked is it was very flexible on as long as you have the classes you need to graduate, you don't need to follow the traditional structure of, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. So then I ended up skipping 11th grade as a result. So I went to college at 16.
Wow.
And so I started in the nonprofit sector. My very first job was in the nonprofit sector. And I started off in that space, fell in love with it, and went, I kind of want to be my own boss, which is funny because technically my boss is the board of directors, but I wanted to still kind of have some freedom and flexibility with things. And I was struggling to find an organization that existed that had this holistic approach to women's empowerment, right? Focusing on how do you look at the whole woman and not just the career or just the academics or just the finances.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted something that could kind of encompass everything and be like an all-in-one space. And I started it after going through probably one of the most just roller coaster of a first year in college of very abusive partner, of just awful, toxic friendships and people I was around. And so I needed some sort of an outlet, and it started off as a podcast, funny enough. And then it became a nonprofit. So a little bit of a strange kind of coming up story, but very thankful for it, of course.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, good for you for finding a good, healthy outlet, because those are challenging times, right? When you're going through a lot. And I tend to be exactly like that, like what you were doing. Like you said, you needed an outlet. You had all this, whether it's friendships and stress and whatever else, and you found an outlet for it that was healthy and productive. And I'm one where, if I'm going through some toxicity, whether it's, health issues or relationship issues or whatever it is, I dive into finding another way where I can be a better version of myself, I guess is the best way to put it.
Exactly. Yes. And I feel like that's one of the most beautiful parts of, I want to say not everyone can do that. And I think being able to be in that space where you can, I think is one of the most beautiful parts of life, is finally getting to the point where it's, all right, instead of wallowing in it, instead of, kicking myself and saying, oh, I can't believe this happened to me and blah, 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 blah. But being able to say, well, this happened. can't change that this happened. So instead, I'm going to use what's happened as, learning lessons for other people, or channel that anger into passion and put it towards something that can better the world. So, yeah, I always love people that also kind of think that way, because it's such a different way of processing emotions.
It is. It is. And it's very more like introspective, where you really are just kind of trying to figure out, like, how can I use this pain that I'm going through as fuel to do something positive?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and I find that, when we're going through stressful times, it it really is a determining factor of which way, how you handle stress, right? Because some people handle stress and toxicity by becoming more toxic, right?
Yeah.
They take on alcohol, drugs, other vices. They kind of find ways to kind of sabotage any potential success that they might have. Whereas others will use that pain and toxicity as a way to fuel something positive. I need out of this. I need to make sure that I'm doing the right things. So tell me, so you were in an abusive relationship in college?
Yes.
And so how did that impact you in
Oh
terms
my
of what
goodness.
you've
In
done?
so many ways. Oh my goodness. I think, looking back on it now, all the signs were there
Hmm.
very early on. And I don't think that I put two and two together. I think I was in such a state of, I need love, I need attention, I need affection, I need someone to, um, kind of balance out some of this internal pain that I was already feeling from other experiences. And when I found someone, I went, great, fantastic, this is perfect, awesome. And I kind of made excuses for all of the other behaviors, all of the, hmm, do I think it's okay that this person looked through my phone every day? Well, maybe they're just jealous, or, well, you know what, it's okay, it's fine. Maybe they just have some stuff going on and they're stressed. All right. Hmm, this person yelled at me for nothing and
Hmm.
keeps yelling at me. Maybe they had a bad day. And so it was just like this constant, let me, make excuses for this person. And I think it took um 8, 10 months before I finally went, hold on, let me put it all together. And I think it was through talking it out with one of my friends at the time, and being able to see her face when I was talking through everything. And she just had this look of disgust, of
Wow.
just like, and she didn't say anything. And I know she didn't want to say anything, but I could see it in her face. And that's when I started to go, oh, hold on. There's something seriously wrong here, because the most nice, wonderful, amazing person that would never say anything bad about anyone is looking at me like I'm talking about a serial killer. Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think now, reflecting on it and what I've learned from it, I mean, three big things is, number one, if you're not happy with yourself, you shouldn't be in a relationship.
Yes.
You need to focus on you first. Because I think a lot of the time we aren't happy with us. So we seek happiness in other people, thinking that, oh, I'm bringing someone into my life. That's going to cure it. That's going to
Mhm.
make me happy. All my problems are
Validation.
solved.
Hmm.
Exactly. And I think that was a big takeaway. And I think the other piece is my boundaries and my ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that.
Hmm.
No, I'm not going to accept that, is in a very different space. And I will say I've lost plenty of relationships because of it. Friends that I had at the time stopped talking to me because I finally went, no, I don't have the energy for that. No, I need to stay home tonight. No, I'm not going to go drinking with you. No, I'm not going to do that.
Hmm.
And I think when you develop those boundaries and you are very clear with those boundaries, you're going to lose people regardless. And it's the biggest, most wonderful, amazing thing when you lose those people, because you realize that this entire time you didn't have the right support network. And
Hmm.
that's a big part of it in any form of abuse, is having the support network to really not get you out of it, because you have to do that yourself, but to help you navigate life without that person.
Absolutely. So there's so many things I want to touch on there. So, number one, I was in an abusive relationship as well, and it doesn't happen overnight, like this
No.
thing, it's a slow burn, like it's slow and steady, because if it were all at once, any smart, reasonable person would be like, no, stop, hard stop, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen that way. It happens very slowly and manipulatively. And so you start questioning your own, judgment, and you start reflecting about yourself, like, wow, did I do something to deserve that? Did I do something to cause that? Because they start gaslighting you, and it's a very slow process.
Oh, yes.
Of making you question yourself so that you question them less, right? And so that's part of it, number one. And your experience where you started telling your friend, because this is not something you talk about. You don't go out and like every day be like, oh, this new thing is happening, and this new thing is happening, and this new thing. You kind of you just absorb it, and you're like, huh, well, it doesn't make me feel good, but I'm not going to talk about it. It's not going to, this is not stuff you're out there talking about every day, especially because it's a little bit humiliating. You're like, why am I tolerating this? But then you assume it's going to get better. You have a fight about it. You think it's going to change, and you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. So that's number one. But then the moment you do start putting all the pieces together and you have a conversation out loud, that's your aha moment. That's your like, oh crap, And so for me, it was going into a couples counselor and saying, here's what's going on. And so I was talking about all of this stuff in a normal tone, like it was just a regular part of everyday life. And the counselor is looking at me with the strangest look. And she's like, do you see how you're talking about this like it's normal? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, yeah, nobody would think that that's normal. Like, that is not a normal everyday occurrence. Like, this is not normal. Have you ever spoken this out loud to somebody and saw the look on their face? She said, that is your evidence that what you're experiencing is your normal, but it is not normal. And so we start to accept it as a new normal. And so I think that was a transformative experience for you to have that conversation with your friend and be able to say, yeah, okay, yeah, this is not okay. And then you set boundaries. And so I love that you went ahead and set boundaries, not just with the toxic, abuser in your life, but with everybody, because I think that is where we really kind of pull it all together as women and step into our power, right? So it's about eliminating people from your life who are stealing your energy and who are not serving the best interests of a relationship, of a partnership, of a friendship, of whatever it is. So I think that's setting up boundaries and holding to those boundaries is a way to show respect for yourself.
Absolutely. There's this analogy that I don't know why people like it so much, but I said it randomly on a podcast once, maybe like 2 years ago, and it's kind of caught on amongst people that I know. And I was talking about how, all right, well, every week I sit on the floor of my kitchen and I go through my fridge and I, make sure the fruit is still good. I look at the milk, I look at the eggs, and then anything that's expired, I'm like, oh, gotta go toss that. And then I'll take a look and go, oh, maybe these apples have a couple days left in them. Okay, all right, I'll make a mental note. And I was thinking about how I do that every single week in my fridge. But I went and I stopped and I thought and I went, why don't I do that in my life? Why don't I sit and really sit in my relationships and think about them, whether it's, a work relationship, even the career that you're in, whether it's a financial situation that you're in, whether it's the people that you're surrounded by. Why don't I sit and look and go, wait a second, I think that apple's expired. It's time to get rid of it. And I think a lot of the time we don't want to do that because we're scared that we're going to open the fridge and realize that half of it is bad, that all of the produce has gone bad. And it's a really scary feeling when you sit down and you do that, because you realize that there's these people, or for me, it was also a job I was in as well. And I realized, wait a second, this has been long past, what I wanted for a long time now. This is not what I signed up for. This is not what I initially thought this was, or how it initially how initially was for me. Why am I holding on to this?
Yeah.
Why am I holding on to something that's not actually making my life better? It's spoiling my fridge. It's
Yeah.
spoiling my life. So I like that analogy to describe it.
Absolutely. Well, and if you also look at like, and like I have a little fruit basket, and if you let one piece of fruit start going rotten, what does it do? It
Yeah,
turns the other ones rotten. And so
exactly.
like you have to discard it, hurry up and get rid of it before it has an impact on anything else in your life, right? And so I love that analogy because I think that there's so much validity in terms of like, and I call it protecting my energy. Like if somebody if I'm around somebody and I just feel like after I leave a conversation with them, I'm drained. I don't feel
Yeah.
good. It's like, oh, this is not good for my energy. I have to not have this person in my life. And it's okay. It's okay to start eliminating those people out of your life. And we have to give ourselves permission as women, which we're terrible at doing, right? Because we're people pleasers. We want when everybody like us. But I think one of the ways that we can really, like your company claim your potential is making sure that you are putting your energy where it belongs and where it best serves you and others.
Exactly. And the best part that I like to tell people is when you do finally stand up and you set a boundary and you're like, hey, we can't be friends anymore, or, hey, I don't think this job's right for me. I would say 99.9% of the time, their reaction justifies why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Um, every person in my life that I've, cut off and kind of told them why, jobs, even friends and colleagues that I know that have done the same thing, every single person had such a just awful reaction from the other party to where you're like, yeah, it's good that I just cut you out because if
Yeah.
this is how you're talking to me now or this is how you're reacting now, thank you for justifying my decision to not be around you anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So what recommendations and what advice would you give to somebody who has somebody toxic in their life? How do you disengage from that relationship?
I think a lot of the time as people, we feel a responsibility to those in our life. We feel a responsibility to, oh, I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to make them sad. Oh, they have a lot going on in their life right now. I don't want to tell them how I'm really feeling. But the truth is, you have to come first.
Hmm.
And I think the worst thing you can do is to let it fester and to hold on to it and to not say anything because it's going to come out at the worst possible time. And we just know that from I would say every piece of research on holding stuff in, it's going to come out at the most inopportune time. And
Right.
so being able to have control over the situation, being able to have control over how you say it, when you say it, where you say it, I think is really important because it is respectful to you and it's respectful to them.
Hmm.
You can have a toxic person, but you still owe them the respect of telling them. You still owe them the respect of, look, I'm doing this for me. Um, and I think that's where sometimes there's a bit of confusion is we think that, oh, this person hurt me, or, oh, I just don't like their energy anymore. I'm just gonna slowly pull away from them, which I think is good to some capacity. But it's when you don't have the conversation, what you've now done is you have not given yourself closure and you've not given them closure, which means you're going to have this semi-open, cracked door, maybe not even a door, but a window that's going to
Hmm.
always be, letting in a little bit of a draft. So being able to get that closure for yourself, I think is important. And also for them as well, just to show them that respect of you're a human being and I'm going to treat you like a human being and make sure that this is something that we both are aware of. Um, I think that's a big piece. And then I think the other piece is being able to kind of pull yourself out of your own mind just for a moment.
Hmm.
When you're looking at toxic relationships, when you think about it from your own perspective, you're not going to see them until it's too late, until it's way past what is just one-off situations to where it's a pattern. And being able to pull yourself out of arguments, disagreements, being able to say, okay, let me think of this as here's Sofie, here's this person. This is what happened. This is the words that were exchanged. Okay. How would that be interpreted to an outside perspective? Hmm, that's not a nice thing to say to that person. Okay, hold on. There might be a bigger issue here. Let me connect. Why did someone feel comfortable to say that to another person?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. There is a much bigger issue. Maybe I should reassess this relationship. And I think being able to actively do that, and it's not easy. It's, I say it like it's easy. It's taken me years of practice to get there, but
Yeah.
being able to pull yourself out of it just for a moment to think about it as though you were a bystander walking on the street seeing this fight happen, what would be your reaction? And then being able to make decisions based off of that and off of here is as, accurate as a viewpoint as you're going to get is that bystander reaction.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, just like you were, saying earlier when you were telling your friend about, a situation, your abusive situation, it's the same thing. It's like,
Exactly.
what would somebody looking on the outside looking in, how would they judge this? And it's, I always say perception is reality.
Yeah.
If somebody else perceives something to be a certain way, there's probably more truth in that than in the version of it that you have in your head if you're in the
Yes. Oh, yes. I love
perception
that.
reality. Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so to kind of pivot a little bit, so when you are setting up a nonprofit at the age of 17, can you tell me about some of the challenges that you had?
Oh, goodness. Ooh, the number one challenge I had was the imposter syndrome, but specifically my identity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I mean by that is being 17,
Mm-hmm.
being a young woman,
Yep.
going into a space that is very male dominated. I mean, it still is. The nonprofit sector, in terms of CEOs and heads are still pretty male dominated
Mm-hmm.
and older male dominated.
Yeah.
And so going into meetings of, all right, I got to go find my board members and meeting with people that were 20, 30, 40 years older than I was the most difficult thing I think I've ever had to do because in the beginning, I was not sure of what I was doing. I was going in just jumping off a cliff and hoping I wasn't going to fall flat on my face and maybe
Mm-hmm.
catch some air and kind of drift downwards. And I was going into all these meetings and I was letting people push me around.
Yep.
I was letting people tell me what was best for my organization. I was letting people tell me that what I was doing wasn't going to succeed. I was letting people tell me that, oh, it shouldn't be like this. It should be like this instead. And granted, I think that there's power in people giving you feedback, but it wasn't feedback. It was, I know this is an easy target and I want to shift how this is going. So I know she's not going to stand up. I know she's not going to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
I know she's just going to go with whatever we say. So we're going to kind of push her that direction.
Yeah.
And whether it was intentional or not, it definitely at the beginning felt very, um, I felt like, for lack of a better word, a loser.
Yep.
I felt like I was screaming in a crowded room and no one could hear me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very isolating feeling, and it was isolating for 6, 8 months into it. It was very isolating. And then I don't know what shifted, but it was almost like this overnight. I think I had some nightmare or something, and then it just kind of woke me up to it. But overnight, I woke up and I remember just going over to my desk and writing down everything that I wanted to say, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that changed my life because I realized after page 12 of this
Wow.
like college ruled, spiral notebook that, wow, I have been letting people dictate my life and letting people dictate what I want to do and my decisions and letting people dictate what I'm saying and what I want to say. And it was the hardest thing to see because I've always thought of myself as a strong woman. My mom is incredibly just stands on her own 2 feet, strong, impactful, powerful. And she raised me to be the same way. And I thought I was. And then
Yeah.
here I am writing all this stuff down. And this was like right after abusive relationship. And I'm like, what is happening to my life? All these
Yeah.
things that if any other person was going through, I would say, what the heck are you doing? Go stand up and say something. I was letting happen and I wasn't doing anything. And then I think at that point, I finally woke up and went, you know what? When I go to my meeting today, I am leading the agenda. I am leading the conversation. I'm asking for feedback. I'm asking for input, but I am making the decision at the end of the meeting. I am making the action items. I am doing this. And that changed everything. And it made me want to continue in entrepreneurship because I finally realized the type of leader I am and how I can best lead. And so I'm in a way thankful for dealing with that because now it is a yes or no. There's no in between.
Yeah.
It's either a there's some phrase, it's either a hell yes or a hell no. And
Yeah.
if you're not sure, then it's a hell no.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, that's very relatable because I think that when we're new entrepreneurs, anyone who's ever started their own business or even just started their own, like, if you're in the PTO and you're on a committee, if you're doing anything that requires leadership, it's very challenging at times if you're new in the role to
Mhm.
be in a position where you feel like you are an authority, even if you're at the top. So even if it's your committee, your company, your nonprofit, it's very challenging, and especially being young. And I started my first company in my early 20s, and it was the same thing. I let people tell me what the company should be because I felt like, well, what do I know? I don't know anything. So even though my, my version of what I was trying to create became a version of what somebody else thought was, and that wasn't authentic. So I can
Yeah.
totally relate to that.
Yeah, and
So,
I think
okay,
yeah.
go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say that there's a really great. I was listening to the Mel Robbins podcast, and she just
Mhm.
had the founder and the former CEO of It Cosmetics on, and they were talking about confidence. And one of the things she said is that you're not crazy, you're just first. And I think a
Oh,
lot of the time when you're young, especially you're starting out in business, you hear all the time, that idea is too big.
yeah.
That's not gonna work. That's not gonna happen. No, no, no. Think smaller. You're crazy. And
Hmm.
she says, I'm not crazy. I'm just first.
Hmm. That's so
So
true. So
yeah.
true. Well, and I think that, one of the scary things with imposter syndrome is we're really gonna, it's hard for us to take a stand because we're afraid of being wrong, right? Like,
Mhm.
what if I'm wrong? What if everybody else is right and I'm wrong? They have the experience, I don't have the experience, so clearly they know what they're talking about and I don't. And so, you start getting in your head with imposter syndrome and with being first in market at anything, you're going to have the critics come out and talk about how your idea just won't work.
Mhm.
So it's one of the hardest things to overcome for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as you're building your board and you're creating these boundaries, how do you foster a culture of respect and healthy boundaries within your organization?
Oh gosh, that I am unlucky and fortunate to have been in some very toxic work environments in my life,
Yeah.
where there was no culture of respect.
Hmm.
And I think I was able to pick up on it very quickly of, why is this person asking me to do check-in meetings every day?
Yeah.
What? Why is this person watching me as I'm in my Trello board? But like they're always watching me in my Trello board. Why is this person asking me to like screen share as I'm doing this with them? This just doesn't make sense to me. And after going through that, I knew I did not want to replicate that. I
Hmm.
knew that micromanagement kills creativity.
Yeah.
Micromanagement causes high turnover rates. Micromanagement is pretty much the kiss of death for any company culture.
Yeah.
And I remember going into my nonprofit with that same at the beginning going, okay, I'm the founder, I got to go make sure everything's perfect. And I micromanaged, and I admit that I micromanaged. And what happened was our first round of staff that we had, all of them left
Mhm.
because I fully admit that I micromanaged, and I got into this is my baby, you don't know what you're doing, like I have to, it's got to be my way. And I realized how toxic that was.
Mhm.
And now going into Sofie Lindberg International, and kind of how I was able to close out my time with Claim Your Potential, is I really made such an conscious effort of switching it over to a I am here to support you. I am here to help with the big strategic thinking decisions,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I trust you in your role. I wouldn't have hired you if I didn't trust you. I trust you that you have the experience to do this. And if you don't, I trust that you have the knowledge to ask me, or to ask someone that has the experience, or to, you know, look it up and do some little YouTube workshops, or something, some way of being able to grow.
Yeah.
And I think for companies that are maybe not as cognizant of it, I would say the first step to fully understand is to talk to your staff. And I don't mean like, let's have an all team meeting and, go round robin and say, give me some feedback. No, it's the one-on-one conversations that you're going to get that, because you have an all staff, no one's going to say anything. You're with 12, 20, 30,
Yeah.
40, 50 people. No one's going to tell you what they really think. But
Yeah.
having one-on-one conversations with people,
Yeah.
really understanding how they're doing, asking them questions, getting to know their style, I think is important too. When I onboard people, I always ask the same 5 questions. And it's, how do you communicate with your team and colleagues? How do you like to be appreciated?
Mhm.
What are your strengths and weaknesses? What do you hope to achieve while working here? And tell me a fun fact. And
Yeah.
I find that makes such a world of difference, because the fun fact, I now know something that's a conversation starter. If
Yeah.
I know you have a dog, every meeting I'm going to ask you, hey, how's Mango doing? Hey, how's Charlie doing? Hey, how's your daughter's dance recital going? I hope her ballet is, doing well. Being able to know something that's not work related, I think is helpful.
Mhm.
And that piece of appreciation is so undervalued, because a lot of companies decide, okay, we're going to do pizza parties for appreciation. Oh, we're going to do here's a spa weekend getaway for appreciation. But if that's not what they want, then you're
Mhm.
not doing anything. And understanding how people are motivated, understanding how people like to be appreciated, I think is important, because it's very different across people. I have plenty of people that I've worked with that love public, you know, shout outs in Slack channels. They love it. And then I have other people that really appreciate just a one-on-one, really quick coffee chat of, hey, I want to say thank you so much for all the work you're doing. Here's all the great things that you've been able to do.
Mhm.
Maybe it is a shout out in the next staff meeting, or just a quick one-on-one little comment here and there. Or, maybe it is a spa weekend, or a coffee that I'm treating you to, whatever it is. I think that's important. And I think that once you get there, respect is going to come with that.
Yeah.
Because if you're treating your staff, you're treating your team like they're people, they are your equals, they
Mhm.
are there to support you, you're there to support them, respect is just going to flow with that.
Agreed. Yes, I agree. Well, and that, backing away from micromanagement is important. And I have I don't like, and I think that you'll find this with a lot of entrepreneurs, is there's a management leadership style, and then there's a visionary leadership style. And they tend to be very opposite in their approach.
Yes.
So like I have a visionary leadership style. If I have to micromanage you, now I'm pissed off about it. Like now I'm like, okay, now this is not a good use of my time to be that involved in your job, right? Like I hired you to do a job. If you're not able to do it without my assistance, now I kind of have to question like how effective are you at your job? And so like I do not like to micromanage, and I don't like to be micromanaged. And so I completely understand about the toxicity of that. But I can also fall on the far side of that, right? Where I'm a visionary leader, which means that I like the big picture stuff. I like the, let me throw a couple resources at you, use them to the best of your ability, but I'm fully focused on chasing this vision down here. And, I'll kind of let you guys know where we fall along the way, but I can become disconnected, and so I can become more disconnected from the day to day, not on purpose. Not because I don't want to be involved with the day to day, but it stresses me out and it crushes my creativity. Right. And so like if I'm in the weeds in my business and I'm involved with the day-to-day operations too much, I get too far away from the vision, and then I'm not happy. Then it's like there's no balance. And so I think it's important to have both sets of leadership in your company.
Absolutely. It's I was thinking on that, and I started off in a very I'm a managerial leader. I just want to like micromanage everything. I want, X, Y, and Z done like this and this done like this.
Yeah.
And then I shifted to visionary. And I kind of had the same thing of I was a little too visionary to the point of I couldn't really articulate how I wanted it to happen. I was like, just make it happen. Just do it. And I think, being able to get to the point where you're like, all right, well, I need a little bit of the visionary, but I need to be able to tell the social media team what the goal is for the social media team and what channels we want to use and at least the type of content that we want to push out and things like that. So being able to kind of articulate that, I think is very important, and it takes a while to get there. I was speaking with a colleague of mine who's been working in leadership for 25 years now, maybe 30 years now. And she's still grappling with sometimes I just really want to say, what are you doing? Just let me take over your work and let me just do it for you because you're not doing what I want.
Yeah.
But then other times, no one knows what I'm asking them to do. And so I think it's something that entrepreneurs or anyone in a leadership role is always going to struggle with, myself included.
Absolutely. So who inspires you in your journey and what you do?
3 people. So I would say first and foremost, my mom. I think my mom, we have a very interesting relationship because we're best friends, but also she's my mother. And so growing up, that was a little bit funky because we would yell at each other, and then we would say, let's go hang out and go see a movie or go catch a show. And it was just a very interesting relationship. And when I became an adult, she didn't stop being my mom and she didn't stop being my friend. And I think having someone in your life where you can go to and say, here's what's going on. And they just know you to your core. They know who you are. They know what you've been through. They know kind of what your intentions are with things as well. I find that to be very helpful. And so in those conversations with my mom, I found such immense inspiration because she's able to bring everything back to, well, what's the bigger picture? What's the greater purpose? What, you're doing this, but how does that connect to, how you want to change the world? What's that doing to impact the world? And I find that to be very helpful. And I also think about everything that she's been able to do. She was a single mom and grew up on welfare. And when she had me and my parents divorced and everything like that, she really took on the jack of all trades role of,
Yeah.
I'm a mom, but I'm dating, but I work full time and I'm in the tech industry and I've got friends that I want to hang out with and I am in musical theater and doing shows and singing in operas and doing
Wow.
everything. And I think she taught me that you can, in a way, not just be one thing and kind of
Mhm.
do it all, but she also taught me you can't do it all because uh she taught me there's no such thing as work-life balance.
Mhm.
There's always moments where one thing takes over her life, and oftentimes it's everyone else takes over her life, and she doesn't get time for herself. And
Mhm.
I find that to be very educational because it makes me and it kind of forces me to sit alone with my thoughts and go, all right, I
Yeah.
don't want to end up, where she is at, in the sense that she doesn't have a second for herself. Okay, what can I take off my plate to get there? Um, I think the other person that really inspires me is Audrey Hepburn. I was obsessed with her since I was maybe 7 years old. I had this
Yeah.
shrine to her in my bedroom.
Oh.
Um, and growing up, I always saw her as this humanitarian icon. And I was shocked that there was someone on this earth that existed that had so much grace and
Mhm.
wisdom
Mhm.
and this undeniable passion of truly helping others. And I think that's rare.
Yeah.
And if I can live every day in a way that I'm authentic to myself and I'm graceful and I can be, I can toot my own horn, but I can also say, you know what? Yeah, I made a mistake on this. I messed up. I did this wrong. Being able to connect everything I do to a bigger purpose in life. And I think being able to live my life where I don't hurt, I help, I think is just inspiring, and it makes me want to live very differently. So yeah.
I love that. I love that so
Thank you.
much. Okay, so I don't want to, end this podcast before I really touch on this very important point. So you're also very highly involved in gender equity and, how, when you were talking about women and empowerment and, kind of getting to that whole woman, right? The all aspects of us and how, and empowering the woman as not just career, not just finance, not just being a mom, not just what role we're playing in life. Talk to me a little bit more about that and where that passion comes from.
Yeah, I think I was raised around strong women, my mom being one, and I think my aunt is also just an incredibly strong force in my life as well. She might not always realize it, but she is.
Yeah.
And I think being around really strong women makes you have this, just feels like second nature to want to question um why some women don't show up that way in their life. And I think it's a very hard thing to see is when I see women show up to work or to school or to, we're hanging out as friends or we're going out to dinner or something, or they're coming to a coaching session or they're at whatever it may be. And when I see them show up and I can feel this sense of just pain,
Mhm.
um, whether it's pain through things that are going on in their life that they're not talking about or that they're not, dealing with. Um, or it's just this historical pain of everything I do doesn't seem to be enough.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that every woman at some point in her life has felt is I'm doing all of these things, but I feel like I'm not a good person. I feel like I'm not doing enough for other people. I feel like I'm failing. And this imposter syndrome, I forgot what the statistic was, but it was something like over 75% of women don't feel like they, are qualified in life,
Yeah.
in various ways. And that was hard to hear. And I think in my life, from, nonprofit space, for-profit space, anything that I do, I want centered around this idea of how can you get a woman to show up as
Mhm.
herself in her full power, with her boundaries set, with a vision of what she wants, where she's not afraid if she gets told no, she's going to keep doing it anyways. If someone says, no, you're crazy, you can't do that, that's too big, that's too bold,
Yeah.
that she's like, no, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I'm going to find my space. And if you don't belong, then that's okay, because it's my space.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And when you were just saying about and I might not attribute this correctly, but I think it was Marilyn Monroe that said, "I wish that brilliant women had the same confidence as mediocre men." And I think that that's so true.
Yes. Oh my
Because I
goodness.
think that women, we question ourselves and our skills and our abilities all the time. And it's very hard on us, like it's an ego thing where we feel like we're constantly not good enough. And, statistically, women will not apply for a job unless they meet 100% of the qualifications, whereas men will generally apply for that same job if they meet 60% of the qualifications, because they understand that they have the skill and the ability to learn on the job. Whereas women assume that if they're not at 100% of the qualifications, that they won't be considered. And it's simply not true, and that's one of the reasons why men advance so much faster than women do in the workforce. It's that we don't take the same chances. We don't have the same confidence in our abilities. And so, yes, I agree that, empowerment is so critical right now. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is women helping women. And I
Yeah.
think that women can be our worst enemies, so much more harsh than men. And so, we tend to be more judgmental than men are of us. I mean, some of my greatest mentors in my life have been men, and really incredibly wonderful men who were very giving of their time and their expertise to be able to help me along. And I couldn't think of one woman outside of my mother who has ever done that for me. And that's one of the reasons I started this podcast, because we need to be providing that platform for each other and for, continuing to elevate and, get our confidence, and also just the mentorship, because our experiences are different. Let's just be honest. They're
Mhm.
different. So, I think that gender equity is very important. And so I applaud you for going down that path and
Thank you.
making that one of your key initiatives.
Thank you.
So, as women, we often give our power away, whether it's, taking criticism that's undeserved. And you talked about, when you were first starting out your company or your nonprofit, that you would constantly let people kind of tell you what to do. So can you tell me about another time that you gave your power away, and then a time that you stepped into your power?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So many. Which
I
is
know.
sad to say. Beyond abusive relationship, beyond
Mhm.
nonprofit, I would say when I got out of that relationship, I stepped into this, all right, now I want to do everything that I couldn't do in a relationship.
Mhm.
So I, was going to all these parties and I was hanging out with all these guys, and I think after a while I started to realize that that wasn't me. I started to realize that, wait a second, why am I getting like blackout drunk every weekend? That's not
Uh-huh.
what I want. That's not who I am. That's never been who I am. And I think coming out of that relationship where I was constantly told, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't hang out with these people. Um, I kind of went overboard afterwards. And in a way, it was almost like I was giving my power back to that
Mhm.
former partner, because I was saying, all right, well, you told me no for this, you told me no for that. Well, now I'm going to go do it. Even if I didn't actually want to go and do it, I was
Right,
just
right.
going out and was like, screw you. I'm doing this to spite you. And I what I had fought so hard to get out of, I was essentially saying, but you still have control over my decisions. You
Yeah.
still have control over my life. And it wasn't until I had met a very close friend of mine, actually. I had met him at one of these parties, and we sat down and had this really, really fantastic conversation. And it was just almost like word vomit came out of like everything I was feeling, why
Yeah.
I was going out and doing all these things. I started crying like the first time I hung out with this person. I was
Oh gosh.
crying. It just all came out. And he looked at me and he just kind of went, "Do you feel better now?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "I could tell you needed that." And I think being able to actually feel what I was trying to feel, um, let me step back into my power and let me reclaim it, because I had been pretending like I was fine, pretending like I wasn't hurt, pretending like I wasn't blaming myself for being in such an awful relationship for so long. I blamed myself for a very long time.
Yeah.
Um, and being able to finally let it all go, cry it out, and say, this wasn't my fault. This was just a person that did horrible things that needs to go deal with their own pain, and his pain cannot be my pain, and
Yeah.
I'm making it my pain, and that's not who I am. That's not healthy for me, and that's
Mhm.
not going to help me. And from then on, that was around the same time that I was also waking up from that nightmare and writing out all the things that I wanted to say and I didn't say. And so all this was just happening at one time. And that's when I finally realized that every single part of my life, I've let people dictate. I've let people tell me what I can't do, what I should do, what I need to do going forward. And I finally said enough is enough. If this is how I am living, I don't want this life.
Yeah.
I don't want to live for somebody else or to spite somebody else. I want to live because this is my purpose, this is my passion, this is what I'm going to do. And ever since then, I've lived every single day telling myself that I believe in my ability to create a better life for myself. I believe in my ability to step into my power, and I believe in my resilience. And I think that's helped. And I try to tell people the same thing, is that hearing the words, "I believe in you," whether it's to you or from someone else, it makes all the difference. All the
Absolutely
difference.
does. 100%. I agree with you. So, okay, I can completely relate. Yes, I agree that, just stepping into your power sometimes just means being authentic to yourself and,
Hmm.
making sure that you're not doing things out of other people's influence just because it's there. So good for you. That's
Thank you.
great story. So, one last thing, and I've really appreciated our conversation. I've gotten a lot of great insight, and I wish you so much incredible success in everything that you
Thank you.
do. But one last question is, what do you wish more people knew?
I wish more people knew it would be okay. I
Yeah.
think we spend so much time focused on, especially women, we spend so much time focused on the what if it doesn't work out? I'm not sure. I don't want to do it. Like what if I fail? And you don't need to be 100% sure. You
Hmm.
just need to be 51% sure.
Yeah.
And I think I wish people knew that. And I wish the other side of that, or part of that, is when we make those decisions, we're so afraid that we're going to make this life-altering decision and that it's just gonna, change everything. And in reality, 90% of the decisions we make are what I call type 2 decisions. And those are decisions that you can walk back out of the door once you've walked in. You can take it back. You can backtrack. And I think that once you start to think about decisions like that, it
Hmm.
makes a difference because you realize it's not as high stakes as you think.
Yeah.
It's a lot simpler than we think it is.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And not everything is life and death, very, very few things are. So, Well,
Exactly.
thank you so much, Sofie. I have really enjoyed our conversation. You are such a delight to talk to, and I am so excited for your future and all the things that you're going to do.
Thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you. I really enjoyed this conversation. I haven't been on a podcast in a while, so I was excited to talk to you.
Yes, my pleasure. So you can find Sofie Lindberg on prettypowerfulpodcast.com, but how else can people find you?
So you can connect with me at sofielindberg.net. That is Sofie Lindberg International. We're actually in our startup phase, which is super exciting. So
Yay.
we'll be launching March 18th. There we go. March 18th. So if you want to go check us out, sofielindberg.net. If you also want to go pay a visit to the nonprofit I founded, it's claimyourpotential.org. We do actually have a mentorship program. So if any of your listeners are interested in mentorship, they can go ahead and sign up on there. And a little bonus that we're giving away to people with Sofie Lindberg International is anyone that connects with us through a podcast. If you use the promo code podcast, you get 10% off your first coaching session with one of our incredible life coaches, which is very exciting.
Very awesome. I love it. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And guys, you can catch us on the next episode of Pretty Powerful Podcast. But for now, thank you, Sofie. And please come check her out on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for joining our guests on the Pretty Powerful Podcast. And we hope you've gained new insight and learned from exceptional women. Remember to subscribe or check out this and all episodes on prettypowerfulpodcast.com. Visit us next time, and until then, step into your own power.